What is up, everybody? It's Whitewall Wednesday, and we're back again to bring you some tips for your marketing campaigns to make sure you get the most money out of everything that you do there. So, today we are talking about how to design for your social media accounts. What is up, everyone? Good to see you joining on here. I will be joined today by our art director, Enzo Plata. Mr. Enzo. What's up, Erica? Thanks for joining. So, like we said, we're going to talk about how you design for social media and really get into that and make sure that your social media designs are actually having the impact that you need. So, we do this every Wednesday. So, it's Whitewall Wednesday. This usually lasts about half an hour. What up, Brianna, Erica, Enzo? All right, let's get you on. As mentioned, our art director, Enzo, is going to join us in here today. Some quick from the horse's mouth. Let's see. And 1, 2, 3. What up, man?
Hey
Good to
man,
see
how you
you.
doing?
Long time no see. Oh, man. So we're talking social media today and design. Last week we were talking with Melanie on different platforms people use to post and scheduling and the best times and days and all that fun stuff. If you guys missed it, we always post this stuff on our Facebook videos. Go check out anything that we're referencing. Today, design for social and just getting into it. I guess the first thing that we always have to get into is that if you just kind of do this off the cuff every time and you're using a different font and a different color and a different whatever, your brand is not on point. So, Enzo, where do you get into your design?
Well, that's a good point that you just brought up. First, the first thing that I would recommend everyone do is create a brand guideline, because that's really what's going to set the tone for your brand, like you said. Brand guideline, for anyone that doesn't know, is like a set of rules for designers and anyone really who looks at it. It just tells you what fonts you're going to use for your brand, what colors you're going to use, what's the overall vibe of your brand, and that gives you an idea of where you want to go, because it's all about consistency, really. You want to keep all your posts consistent and everything to flow together. So really, I would start with a brand guideline to set that up, and it just takes 15-20 minutes.
If you guys want to look like $1 million brand, that's definitely the place to start. Is just consistency in fonts and colors. To be honest, it's really easy. What do we have? Like 3 fonts usually for a brand and maybe 5 colors. So it's not that it's a crazy complex thing to do to start. But if you guys remember anything from back in school, the teacher's always going to tell you to take 10 minutes to prepare. You know, before you write your essay, prepare. Before you do your art, prepare. That's just the preparation part. So choose your fonts, choose your colors, and then over the next year, 2, 5 years, man, your brand looks on point and it looks like a prestigious brand. What's the point of? I mean, I know we were supposed to finish with this, but just so people understand, the whole point of all of this today is conversion, right? So why are we going to make it look good? Why are we going to try this versus that? Because we want more sales. So yes, it looks awesome, and your brand gets to have that privilege of looking like super on point. But more importantly, I'm going to use that to get sales, and I can talk about that later. How I'm going to A/B test my ads and things that Enzo is doing. But more structurally here. So as we're starting, we get the brand guideline documents, and you might have like a title font, like a header font, and some body font, some basic things just chosen out. And as you're going through your social, you keep that in mind. And another kind of key component is, especially for social media, that 20% rule. So I don't know if you guys are familiar, whoever's watching, but if you have more than 20% text on your image, it's actually going to become much more expensive to advertise. So if you're posting stuff that you're expecting to kind of boost later, you want to kind of keep that stuff front and center of just the big picture preparation, brand guideline documents, what are the rules of this platform. So Enzo, give us more on like that sort of technical side of things. How do you approach social media design specifically? What tips would you have for people?
Like you mentioned, you got to keep in mind how you use your font, and you got to keep in mind also if you're going to reuse that same image you create for an ad, and that could change the design completely. You got to keep in mind what's the goal of the image you're creating. You want people to click it. You want people to go to your profile. You want people to go to your website. So that really also affects what the overall design is going to be. And yeah,
So how would, I mean, what do you mean in that sense? So like if you're trying to get different forms, how would you structure your design differently for different campaigns?
well, yeah. So if you want, depends. Like I said, it depends on what you want to achieve from this post. You want to convey information. You want people to click on it. The way to do it really is sometimes it's trial and error. You want to try different images. You want to figure out what you're trying to get across. So you want the title to be the biggest one. You want to draw attention to that title so people know like what's the point of this. And then you want to have hierarchy, which is super important.
So I mean, just for people to understand, so you're talking about, you're like drawing people's eye to a specific point. And then the hierarchy you're talking about is like, I'm going to draw your eye here first, and I'm going to draw your eye there second, and your eye here third.
That's right.
Okay, so just so people understand what it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, that makes sense. So you're thinking of a hierarchy in terms of like where you want people to look.
That's right. The most important piece of the image, followed by the less important information, and lastly, the much less information. You want to guide the viewer from here to here. You don't want to throw information all over the place, because when we look at it, our eyes immediately like don't want to look at it.
And I mean, for people to know, typically, if all of your font is the same size, if everything is all the same, people are going to go from top to bottom, left to right, the same way that they read a book. But you can play with the psychology of that by putting a really big piece of font in the line, which people will immediately go to that big piece of font first. Or you can have that be a different color, or if it's all the same size font,
or just can you change fonts? You can have two.
Yeah, which is something I see that you do a lot, which is like it's all the same size font, but the word that you want them to look at first is actually a different font. And it's a really nice, subtle way to get that across. But yeah, typically it'll be top to bottom, left to right, unless you kind of play with that psychology. And the imagery is important. So you take like what percentage of the time is, that's a big portion of just
picking the right image. Honestly, it's like one of the most important things. It takes me sometimes 15 to 30, 45 minutes really just to find that perfect image, because
it really makes a difference, that visual. And everyone's a bit different. I know a lot of people still harp on video. I might be one of the few people that really just likes like an image, because if you nail that exactly the way that you want, that image is input into someone's head upon seeing it. Whereas a video has to be played, or there's some elements to it. So videos are really engaging and great. But so Mel, that's a good question. How do you pick the right image? There is a place where science and art meet in this business, and that's Enzo. and so I don't know. I think, how do you, like, obviously you're not looking at data feedback, you're sort of following your gut. I'm doing A/B testing as I do a lot of advertising in conjunction with Enzo. So yeah, I mean, for me, I'm going to actually run exactly the same ad, the only difference being the imagery, one against the other. And I can very quickly see what the pricing looks like and which one is better for that campaign. But beyond the data, how do you choose it in the first place? You're just really good at knowing this, or your gut?
Well, obviously you got to start with research. You want to know what's the goal of your client and what kind of vibe he wants to get across and what's the point. So yeah, like if you have a guy that's all about training hard and going hard at the gym, you want like a gritty image that will get you motivated. And it's not just what's in the image, it's also like how the image is arranged. The way I look at it sometimes, I try to picture like, okay, I'm going to put the text over on the left side and I want the image to be over on the bottom right side. So that goes into it. And before I even get into that, you also got to make sure you don't take any copyrighted images. That's a big deal.
Oh, man, I've seen some clients lose money on that. Guys, don't just grab stuff from Google, especially if it's someone famous. They can sue you. Now, it's interesting. If you post organically on social media, no problem there. But if you advertise it, then you're entering some really bad territory. So posting on social media, not really actually a big deal. Advertising, Yeah, you're definitely taking that to the next level. That's a good point. And one
Yeah.
other thing I've learned kind of along the way too is to test what I'd call lifestyle versus product imagery. So for pretty much any client, I mean, not every client, but for most clients, you can actually show somebody using the product or service as opposed to just, you know, really focusing on that product or service more in its own element. So, you know, a picture of a pen versus a picture using the pen, like for me at a desk, testing that product versus lifestyle component is definitely big. A lot of brands will lean more one way or another with their customers,
Yeah.
which is interesting. So, I mean, what are you typically posting these days? We used to do a lot of static imagery, I
Yeah, we're trying
suppose.
to move away from that a little bit.
Yeah. So,
Uh,
what's the breadth of social media, and how would people get into it? Also, of like, you know, if they were doing some stuff on their own.
yeah. Well, you want to keep it interesting, really. You can't just post static images all the time because times are changing and people are getting more into different media. Now we got Reels on Instagram, we got whole TikTok. There's a lot of videos and stuff moving around. So you want to play around with not just static images. You want to see if you can use some videos, see if you can use some GIFs. A good strategy we have, if you have a long video, you can record a really long video, 10 to 20 minutes, and then you can edit it and split it up into 4 or 5 videos, and then you have content for the whole month. So yeah, you gotta just think how you can maximize your content and how you can give more. Always want to give more to the people, and so when
Yeah.
people look at your profile or whatever it is, they're like, "Wow, this guy's got a lot going on." And yeah, and then for people that are like, anyone can do this really because there's a lot of websites that will help you out with this. There's one of our favorite websites to use is Canva, and you can find GIFs, videos. You can even edit your own videos on there.
Yeah.
Like,
Canva.com. Yeah.
yeah, so you don't really need
Yeah.
to hire a graphic designer. However, I would recommend it because
Yeah.
you know
Yeah. I would too. Yeah.
sometimes Canva
So, I
scares
mean,
me a bit.
some tips. If you guys are doing this on your own and you're actually running your own social media accounts, there are sites like I'd recommend unsplash.com, something like that, where you can actually go and get imagery, which is really nice imagery a lot of times for free, and you don't have to worry about getting busted later. Yeah, the last client that I know that got caught up using an image they weren't supposed to had to pay $2,500 to Shutterstock, and I mean all they had was on a demo website. It wasn't even published, so that stuff can get really expensive really fast. So Unsplash or free sites like that will definitely save you some trouble. And
Yeah,
Canva is like a design area where they have the social media sizes and graphics all kind of laid out for you, and it makes it pretty easy. So definitely, it's not like having a creative director and art director and everyone thinking together. At Whitewall as an agency, which if you need some heavy thinking, definitely hit us up. We can do that. But if you need to do it on your own, there's free, easy tools out there where you can definitely make it a bit better. So, well, yeah, like I was saying before, the whole purpose of this, I mean, the purpose of social media design is to increase your conversions and your sales. So what I'll do with Enzo frequently is we'll come into an account with what we consider to be a sort of universal piece of content and walk that line down the middle. And we'll test a lot of different audiences in advertising accounts with that more singular piece of creative to see which audience is going to gauge the best with us. So it's typically a more expensive piece because it's a rather generic sort of floater, but we start to get feedback from the audiences, and from there we'll start to create 3 to 5 pieces of content to narrow down on our best performers.
yeah,
We don't leave anyone off the table. It's just we go after the lowest hanging fruit first. But the design elements are super important. What we talked about, Enzo, too, before was the importance of matching up your design elements from the advertising to the landing page and the social media post, which is kind of a bit beyond social media. But just kind of unifying those campaigns.
yeah,
You'll typically create how many different versions of a design? You'll have an email, a web, social post, and social media. when in doubt, center it out. You're going to get cut off on the edges a lot. Like a Facebook banner, for example, on desktop is going to be nice and big. On a mobile, it's going to be really narrow. There's only one Facebook banner that you're going to be able to upload. So keeping that kind of stuff in mind in terms of sizing and using the same imagery as you go along, just making sure everything looks clean, it takes a lot of work.
Yeah,
I've
like I
seen like
said,
12 variations of a single image from you. Yeah.
yeah. One person could do it, but really, like, it takes a lot of time and a lot of thinking. So if you have a whole team behind it, that's really a huge advantage. It's also
Yeah.
more eyes at it. Like, it goes through stages, It goes through our social media director, and then it goes to me, and then I talked about it with my creative director, and we changed some things here and there, and then it goes to the next step, and then our account managers. And so that's a huge advantage that you have that.
Yeah. No, and that makes sense. And the calls to action and the stuff that you put on there, especially because it's so limited, it really has to be on point. But
Yeah.
in social media world, especially for design, when you're putting posts and ads and stuff that live for a long time, there are definitely little tips and tricks. Like you don't want to say, join us in 7 days. You'd rather just say join us on whatever the date is, because that way, as things are being advertised from day to day, everything is still relevant and it still makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, certain design considerations really play into how well that advertising is going to perform and how much money you can make out of your campaigns, as a result. So, yeah, sometimes I say like the design is really the skin around the skeleton. I see marketing as a really like a business enterprise. If there are goals that need to be reached, and here's how we're going to structure it. And then we have to really create this beautiful kind of power to energize the whole system and wrap this thing around. So it's kind of cool how the business and the art work together. There's definitely data that I'm looking at, and art on Enzo's side. So I guess we can leave it at that for today. But like I said, we have these videos all saved onto Facebook videos section there. So go check it out if you get a chance. Or if you want to catch today's episode again, you can go do that. And we are live every Wednesday at 4 o'clock. So Whitewall Wednesday will be here again. But yeah, Enzo, any closing tips for the peeps? I think we're losing them.
No, I think we covered.
All right. Well, that'll call it for a day then. If you guys need any help, if you have any questions, just send us a DM. Otherwise, we'll catch you here next week. Whitewall